Yeah, copy. Theo, could you get a headrest?
Formula One. On digital, online, smartphone and tablet. This is 5 Live Formula One. Live from Sochi.
Hello, I'm Jenny Gow, and what a season this is turning out to be. The races keep delivering thrilling action, and now, well, the grid is a mixed-up mess of engine penalties and mistakes and some incredible driving. That leads to Lando Norris getting his first pole in Formula One. Alongside him is his former teammate Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari. And it's an all-British second row with George Russell in his Williams in third. Yes, you heard right, alongside Lewis Hamilton. Whilst championship leader Max Verstappen starts plumb last. Jack Nicholls. It's quite extraordinary.
Look, we're in for a really good race. Like, there's absolutely no doubt about that, which is quite a rare thing to say ahead of Sochi. But whatever happens, if one of the top three win, then it's a first-time winner. If Hamilton comes from fourth to win, then we've had quite a good race. Verstappen's going to be coming through the order. That's going to be quite interesting. There's lots of quite interesting things that could unfold today. It's the first time since the Swedish Grand Prix, I think in 1975, that none of the top three on the grid have ever won a race before.
Oh, good stat work. Nice, like it.
Motorsport, that was from Motorsport Stats. I should probably credit them.
Credit them. There we go. Jolyon Palmer, you're with us as well. Lando Norris starting in pole. Great job from him yesterday. How does he keep the lead of this race? Can he?
He can, yep. Well, first of all, he's got to get a good start. Really long run down to the first corner, which is actually turn 2 in Sochi. It's the longest run down to the braking zone in the entire calendar. So slipstream is going to be a thing. Lando is very aware of it. He's worried about it. But he needs to get a good launch and then basically cover the inside down towards turn 2. No one should be going around the outside of him there. He can go in deep and just cover that one off. But he's got to get the launch to make sure no one can slingshot right the way around him. And then the McLarens are a hard car to pass. We saw that last time out. They're pretty quick. Lando was quick in the intermediate conditions anyway yesterday. He was faster than Bottas in Q3. And it was then the slick tyre run at the end that obviously gave him the pole. But he's quick. It's going to be Lewis Hamilton that's the threat from fourth on the grid, I think, more than Sainz or Russell. But what he really needs is his teammate to help out. I think Daniel Ricciardo starts fifth. If Ricciardo can pass Hamilton at the start, that changes the whole dynamic of this race and Norris's threat from Hamilton. If he can't, then I think Lewis can pick off Russell, pick off Sainz, and then it's going to be a tough one for Lando to keep the win.
Lando Norris just having his feet wiped as he got in with his racing shoes into his papaya orange car. His first pole position in Formula One. He doesn't sleep well at the best of times, but Jolyon, I mean, I don't know how you switch off to that, how you get any sleep the night before you know you've got a chance.
Were you a good sleeper before, like, your first Grand Prix in Melbourne?
I think I was all right, but I always used to take the pressure off. And I don't think it makes a huge difference because you have the adrenaline going. So it becomes, by the time you're on the warm-up, you're not like yawning. You're focused. You're focused. So it's one of those things where you might be a little bit tired. You can panic yourself about a lack of sleep. Whereas actually, if you don't think about it too much.
So Lewis, the rain that we're seeing on the forecast there is on the radar rather. There is a little bit that may come towards the very beginning of the race, but it may just miss us. It's sort of fizzling out, but yeah, very unpredictable at the moment.
Well, there's another twist in the tail as well.
So Lewis, the rain that we're seeing on the forecast there is on the radar rather. There is a little bit that may come towards the very beginning of the race, but it may just miss us. It's sort of fizzling out, but yeah, very unpredictable at the moment.
The ingredients to really deliver.
Well, the ingredients are Mercedes aren't on the front row. If Mercedes are on the front row, as they were looking like they were going to be yesterday, then they're disappearing and winning this race 1-2, and the only question is how far through the field can Verstappen come. But Valtteri Bottas in the other Mercedes is 16th, Hamilton is 4th. A really frantic race for the win. Russell in there, how high can he stay up the order? Sainz's Ferrari, can he hold on for a podium? How far through can Verstappen come in terms of damage limitation as well?
I think we're somewhere between having a good race today and an epic, and I think the start is going to really dictate that. If Hamilton gets a place,
where will the rain hit first? Which corner?
Turn 5, turn 6. Will it be light intensity, light rain expected, if anything? And some breaks, please. So we're expecting a bit more than Q1 level.
Highlights from Sochi the previous years, and I'm still in the highlight reel for when Grosjean biffed me off at the start of 2017.
Well done, you.
But it's because there's been such a lack of action. The crash wasn't even a thrilling crash, but it's like one of the few
One of your worst, I would say.
One of my worst crashes.
Yeah, well, one of your most boring.
All right.
I was just saying you've had better. I'm saying you've had better.
I've had more interesting crashes. Yeah. But it shows that, you know, the people fighting for 16th place at the start in 2017 make the highlight reel sort of nearly a decade into Sochi races. But I think after today, I might be binned off that for next year.
You're on the cutting room floor after today. Right, a reminder, it's Norris and Sainz front row. Teammates, good friends, go golfing a lot. Let's see what brews between them, if they can hatch a plan to maybe try and defend from everybody else. Behind them, it's Russell in his Williams and Hamilton after a mistake in qualifying. Then we've got Ricciardo, Alonso, Stroll, Perez, Ocon and Vettel, your top 10. It's Gasly and Tsunoda making up an AlphaTauri 10 and 11 places. I'm saying 10, 11. Should be 11 and 12. Raikkonen, Schumacher, Mazepin, and then you've got the people who have been given penalties. So Bottas starts 16th, Giovinazzi taking gearbox, Latifi 18th, Leclerc 19th, Verstappen last. Jolyon, where's Verstappen going to finish this race? He leads the championship by 5 points. Will he still be leading by the end of the day?
No. Hamilton will reclaim the lead of the championship, in my opinion, at the moment. My prediction, I think Lewis can win the race, and I think Verstappen will be happy enough with the top 5. If something else happens, he can maybe fight for a podium.
Usual reminders. So once the engine fires up, there will be pit speed limiter on. Then you keep pit speed limiter on until you're past pole position. And work these tires on the formation lap. Think about energy management as well.
So I think that's the time to take your engine penalty, to be honest. I don't believe it's to interfere with Verstappen, because if he's starting 16th and Verstappen's starting 20th, Bottas isn't just going to sort of park the bus when Verstappen catches him for 16th place and then they run around in 16th place the whole time. I think if you were trying to scupper Verstappen, you'd want Bottas further up the order. So I think it is just making that engine change, getting that penalty out of the way in the most convenient time. Tyre allocations have just come through. Alonso in 6th, Perez in 8th, Gasly in 11th, then Bottas, Giovinazzi in 16th and 17th, and Leclerc and Verstappen 19th.
So Sebastian, ahead it's Alonso in P6 on hard, Perez P8 on hard. Behind is Gasly on hard, and then it's at the back Bottas, Giovinazzi hard, Leclerc, Verstappen hard.
3-lap race. Everybody else, as you say, starting on the mediums, and the pit window will open from around lap 10. There's a lot of strategy calls for this, Jolyon. Only one stop we're expecting, but a lot that you can do differently.
The degradation is low. That's why you can do 40 laps on a set of hard tyres, and it gives you options. You can still pit in early, get yourself into clear air, but of course the undercut is less useful as well, because there's no big degradation, so that everyone else is still running around on tyres that have got grip. But there's flexibility, which is good for Verstappen. What's bad is that all the quick drivers ahead of him, or directly ahead of him, have gone for the same tyre as him. So Leclerc on the hard and Bottas on the hard tyres, like for like, Bottas and Verstappen. It means that, I think if Max clears Valtteri on the first lap, that's going to be huge for his race.
Well, a minute to go until the start of this formation lap. Let's hand over to our commentary team. We are ready for what should be a thrilling Russian Grand Prix. It is Jolyon Palmer and Jack Nicholls.
Yeah, looking forward to this a lot. Carlos Sainz just staring down at his steering wheel. Lando Norris doing likewise. His visor is down as he looks to take the start of his first Formula One Grand Prix from pole position in that orange McLaren. The tyre warmers about to come off Verstappen's car at the back of the grid on the hard tyres. How aggressive is he going to be on the opening lap? I think that's going to be a really fascinating thing to watch. He and Charles Leclerc trying to make their way through the order. Leclerc in some ways has a little bit less to lose. For those of you wishing to sync up, we're about to get going and the second light is about to go out at the front of the field, but it's coming up to 1 o'clock here, and it is time for the Russian Grand Prix.
Make sure to use the pit board, as I might not hear you very well.
Copy that.
Pull away. Lando Norris on pole position. Carlos Sainz in second spot. Third for George Russell. Fourth for Lewis Hamilton. Fifth for Daniel Ricciardo. Alonso, Stroll, Perez, Ocon and Vettel the top 10. Gasly, Tsunoda, Raikkonen, Schumacher and Mazepin the top 15. Bottas, Giovinazzi, Latifi, Leclerc and Verstappen the 20 drivers.
And 3:15. We think it's going to be light, and potentially other teams think it'll be lighter than we do. That's probably quite important. Anything, it means that it's more and more plan A. More and more plan A.
So Norris being told then that in about 15 minutes time they're expecting a little bit of rain. Alonso on the hards is quite an interesting one.
Between 5 and 15 minutes, I think was the radio message there. So it's similar to Mercedes, but...
my battery is just draining. I don't know what's going on.
...are thinking, but they need to watch what they're doing, their rivals, because they're at the front of this one and they can copy.
My battery is just draining. I don't know what's going on.
Okay, my battery is just draining, says Verstappen. I don't know what's going on.
That's bad. That's bad news. You need a fully charged battery to start the Grand Prix. You need all that energy deployment, a lot of it on the first lap to go and attack and gain places. And if Verstappen is starting the race without a fully charged battery, then that's going to be a problem for him to make places at the start. He's very early on in the lap, so he's only 1/3 of the way through, come through the first sector. So hopefully he's got time to salvage that.
So a McLaren on pole position, a Ferrari alongside George Russell third in the Williams. We haven't fully touched on Russell. What can...
All good now.
For him to get anything more than points, I think.
So top 10 is going to be tough?
I think it's sort of 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th in that region. There's too many faster cars in these conditions.
All good now.
There we go. Verstappen all good now.
Quite a relatively quick warm-up lap from Norris, so he's coming through the final corner now, and Verstappen is still in the middle sector. It's going to be a bit of a hold at the front of the grid for Lando.
Comes around the final corner now, floors the throttle, puts some temperature into those rear tyres. Medium tyres for Norris, medium tyres for all of the top 5. What sort of start can Lewis Hamilton get? What sort of start can Max Verstappen get from the back of the field? How much progress can the Dutchman make in these early stages, in the opening laps, when there is time to be gained, but there's also just front wings to be knocked off?
That's what he cannot afford. It's one thing being aggressive with Lewis Hamilton. You don't want to be aggressive with the likes of Antonio Giovinazzi on lap 1. So it's balancing a fine line for Verstappen.
So the car's pulling up into their grid slots now. 53 laps of racing in the Russian Grand Prix about to get underway. This, the 15th round of 22 in the World Championship season. And Lando Norris will be starting for the first time from pole position. Max Verstappen, the championship leader, 5 points ahead of Lewis Hamilton, pulls up at the back of the grid. The green flag is waved. Norris is on pole position. Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari is second. Lewis Hamilton is fourth as the race gets underway. And it's a pretty decent start from Daniel Ricciardo. He's got into the slipstream and he's got ahead of Hamilton. Hamilton's got a poor start. He's already down to 5th place. Now they come charging towards the second corner and Hamilton is fighting back. He goes to the inside and Lance Stroll is in there as well. There's a big lockup and Carlos Sainz takes the lead of the race. Sainz leads, Norris is second, Russell is third, Alonso goes straight on, Ricciardo is side by side with Hamilton as they come through turn 3. Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari still holds the lead of the race and Hamilton is getting shuffled further back. He's behind Fernando Alonso, but Alonso went off the circuit at turn 2 to gain that position. So it's Sainz, Norris, Russell, Stroll, Hamilton and Alonso going wheel to wheel, and it is Alonso who's just in front at the moment, and Hamilton's now side by side with Ricciardo as they come down towards the next right-hander, and Ricciardo is through. Hamilton's falling further and further back in the field, Jolien.
Lance Stroll's made a good start up into 4th place, and it's just disastrous for Lewis Hamilton, who got shuffled out with every corner, having to be cautious with midfielders that are not thinking championship championship, and they can go out and attack. Fernando Alonso with a good start up into 5th, and Carlos Sainz, his compatriot, now leads the Grand Prix. Good slipstream and a brave move around the outside, super deep. I thought he wasn't going to make the corner at turn 2, but he's got ahead of Norris.
Ricciardo is now fighting side by side with Alonso, and he gets ahead coming into turn 13. So Sainz is leading, Norris is down to 2nd, Russell is 3rd still in the Williams. Lance Stroll has made up 3 places into 4th, 5th is Daniel Ricciardo, 6th is Fernando Alonso, and Lewis Hamilton started 4th, and at the end of the first lap is down to 7th. Max Verstappen has gained 2 places, make that 3 places because he's just got ahead of Mick Schumacher and is up into 17th place. So Gigi, a disastrous start for Lewis Hamilton. He's down to 7th place. He's got a run here now, though, on Fernando Alonso. They come down towards turn 2 again. Sainz leading by a 2nd over Norris. Russell in 3rd, and Hamilton's got a real shot here at getting Fernando Alonso as they come down into the braking zone. Alonso covers the inside and wasn't particularly aggressive there, Hamilton, in trying to make that pass that time, but he's going to get another run as they come through the long left-hander of turn 3. Hamilton
And look after your tyres. Behind Lando is Russell, Stroll, Alonso, and then Hamilton P6.
cut back into 5, isn't able to do it, so Hamilton back up to 6th, but Sainz leads the way.
Medium tyres for Hamilton, hard tyres for Alonso, and I think maybe that helped as well as having a Mercedes compared to an Alpine, and in the end Fernando, nothing he could do there about holding Lewis Hamilton back through a few corners. The car behind, if he hadn't have done that, was Sergio Perez, interestingly, the other Red Bull, so that would have been a bit more interesting. But we said before the race, how does this race work for the leaders, for Norris or now Sainz in the front? It would be if Hamilton falls behind either Ricciardo or Alonso. Well, he fell behind both. Okay, he's now cleared Fernando Alonso maybe more easily than we might have expected, and that might be in part because of the hard tyres on the Alpine. But Ricciardo's going to be a hard car to pass. The McLaren is quick in a straight line, and he's on the mediums, the same strategy as Lewis Hamilton.
So one Ferrari, Jenny, takes the lead of the Grand Prix. The other has made very good progress.
Really has. Charles Leclerc started on the back row of the grid alongside Max Verstappen. He's up 7 places. He's currently sitting in 12th, while Verstappen could only make up a few and is currently 17th. So contrasting fortunes for the people starting on the back row.
Yeah, Leclerc absolutely scented at the inside down into turn 2. Sainz didn't get a good start. He was quite a way back from Lando Norris and looked as though he was getting passed by Russell.
His move at turn 2 was brilliant, really good. He was on the outside of Norris. He was slightly ahead of Norris, but he had still work to do because Lando had the inside, and I thought he wouldn't be passed if he could just be there on the inside, but Sainz went in really deep, had a bit of a lock-up on the front right, quite a big one in fact, but managed to just outbrake Norris in the crucial phase and keep it within the track limits on the exit. It was a really, really nice move after what, as you say, was actually a really average start. He nearly lost out to Russell, and he almost lost out to Ricciardo. I thought for a moment it was going to be a McLaren 1-2.
Hamilton, he kept sort of dropping back and then fighting back and then dropping back and then fighting back. It was a real roller coaster of emotions down towards turn 2. Ended up coming out in sort of 6th or 7th places. The Alonso move at the start there was a bit interesting, but Hamilton dropped to 6th and then he was almost back up to 2nd again by the time they got onto the brakes into turn 2.
The slipstream effect was really big, but the problem was, with too many cars then ahead of him, there was nowhere for him to find some clear space and use the extra pace he had. Got bulked on the inside, that allowed Lance Stroll through in the middle. Alonso, I think, was ahead of Stroll into the braking area and then went off the road but came back on effectively behind him, so I think that will be okay for Fernando Alonso on the start. But he was just struggling to defend Hamilton because the likes of Alonso, the likes of Ricciardo were just chancing it, and if Hamilton wasn't thinking championship, maybe he could have been more aggressive with those guys at the start. But when Verstappen's starting from the back...
Nice move. Let's stay on Hamilton.
To have a real problem, be all the way to the back. Perez has passed Alonso though, so he now has the Red Bull behind him, and interestingly Verstappen's just behind Bottas. They're 15th and 16th.
Yeah, so Verstappen has gained more places. Carlos Sainz leads on lap 4 of 53. Lando Norris is 2nd, and then there's a 4-second gap back to George Russell, and everybody is queued up behind Russell basically. So Russell in the Williams, Stroll in the Aston Martin, Ricciardo in the McLaren, Hamilton in the Mercedes are the 4 cars in the queue. We'll see if Perez joins that fight fairly soon. Jenny Gao.
Yeah, I've just been listening across to Carlos Sainz's radio and Ferrari telling him to look after his tyres. Have that lock up on them. Ideally, you want to go as long as you can on these mediums, at least 20 laps. He'll see if he can hold on. And just to let you know, no chance of rain expected for the next 20 minutes at the moment. It seems to be missing the track to the west.
Okay, well, that's good news, I guess, for Carlos Sainz out in front here. 1.5 seconds ahead of Lando Norris, and they are lapping so much quicker.
Okay, George, gap at 0.5.
Sergio Perez set the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, so he's going to be on the back of Hamilton before too long if Hamilton can't clear Ricciardo fairly soon. But I think Russell will get past fairly swiftly on this run down towards turn 2.
It's a dreamy situation for Sainz and Norris, though. Former teammates last year, now Ferrari leading McLaren. But Russell behind is dropping back quickly. There's a 4-second gap between Norris and Russell, and it's growing all the time. But Russell's only got Lance Stroll behind. Lance Stroll's only got Daniel Ricciardo behind, and then it's Lewis Hamilton.
Okay, we think rain is reducing, so we need to do something about Russell.
So that's Stroll being told that the chances of rain is reducing. Now this could be his opportunity to get George Russell on the run down towards turn 2. They come across the line to start lap 5 of 53 in the Russian Grand Prix. It's too far back though. The Williams is very quick in a straight line, and they arrive at turn 2, and they look for all the world as though Stroll would be able to get a run there. Bottas is 14th, Verstappen is 15th, Sainz and Norris still first and second.
Lap with just +1.
Pin on that lap, and Bottas doing the fastest lap of the race with that as well, even though he's down in 14th. Now onto the back of Gasly. Charles Leclerc's had a rocket start, by the way. From 19th, he's up into 12th, so all focus on Bottas and Verstappen. But Leclerc's not far from the points, and he's on the hard tyres as well. So that's another driver coming from the back. The dreamy situation for Sainz and Norris is, as I said, Russell with only Stroll, Stroll with only Ricciardo. They're in reverse pace order. So this is perfect. They're in a DRS train of reverse pace order, so there's no big pace advantage. How much faster is the Aston Martin than the Williams? It's quicker, but it's not as quick as a McLaren versus a Williams. Ricciardo would have a better chance of passing Russell. Of course, Hamilton would have a presumably quite an easy chance to pass Russell. But because they're all in this DRS train and Stroll has a slower car than the McLaren and the Mercedes, he's got the worst chance to pass Russell, but he's got the DRS, and it means the cars behind can't pass him. So
Yeah, tyres a little bit of R2, R3 rear. Definitely being held up a little bit.
Each other, unless Stroll can clear Russell, then the others have all got DRS. Fastest lap of the Grand Prix for Carlos Sainz, 2 seconds ahead now of Lando Norris. So good pace from the Ferrari driver out front. Norris in second, then it's 6 seconds back to George Russell in third position, who's ahead of Stroll, Ricciardo, Hamilton and Perez in that queue. Is Stroll going to be close enough this time, coming towards turn 2? No, still not. Russell holds on to that third position, and no one in there is able to make any moves yet.
And they're not going that quickly, so there's no big undercut opportunity, because if anyone pits, they're going to be shuffled right to the back of the field. They're at George Russell's pace, which is a similar pace to the likes of Pierre Gasly. Gasly's actually quicker on the last lap in 13th. So there's no window that's going to open up, which normally happens for the front runners. So they're in this for the long haul on tyres that aren't really degrading very quickly.
Okay, Sven, the next 6 cars ahead are all being held up by Russell at the moment. How are the tyres?
Sounds okay at the moment.
Something happen ahead, break up the gang so they're not all getting DRS, and then you can get them when they're not as capable of defending with their DRS. Verstappen is right on the back of Bottas. This could get interesting.
Yeah, just going to have a watch of them coming down towards turn 13. They're coming through the right-hander now that takes them out onto that back straight, and Verstappen is very, very close to the back of the Mercedes as they come in towards 13. Is he going to go for the dive here, coming into the right-hander? He's closing on Bottas. Verstappen sends it up the inside of Bottas, and Bottas is passed fairly straightforwardly.
This is going from bad to worse for Lewis Hamilton then. Verstappen passed his teammate, Bottas. Meek in defence, no defence really from him. Verstappen just closing on the straight. It was obvious it was going to come there because he managed to stay very close in the middle sector. Bottas making no...
And more info, apparently Hamilton's 6th, Checo's right behind him.
There's only one Mercedes ahead of Verstappen now, and it's Lewis Hamilton. Bottas is close this time, but I think Verstappen's also going to have DRS to defend.
They're coming down towards turn 2. And I don't think Bottas is going to be close enough. So Verstappen makes that move, Jenny.
Yeah, so The engineers ahead of the race, they said you needed a pace advantage of 1.2 seconds to be able to make the overtake on the guy in front of you. So quite difficult to overtake, not as hard as last time out, but still proving difficult for some of those. Others making it look easier. And just listening to Lando Norris on the radio, he's P2, he's just saying that he's being held up a little.
So Verstappen ahead of Valtteri Bottas now. Sainz leading the Grand Prix, 2.2 seconds ahead of Lando Norris. Then it's Russell third still, fourth Stroll, fifth Ricciardo, sixth Hamilton, seventh Perez, eighth and ninth the two Alpines of Alonso and Ocon. Raikkonen is 10th in the Alfa Romeo.
Daniel, could be plan B, could be plan B.
Okay.
And Schumacher, the 20 drivers.
Next car ahead for Verstappen is Pierre Gasly, his former teammate. Of course, driving an AlphaTauri. Now, how hard does an AlphaTauri fight with a Red Bull? That's what we need to see now, because he was managing to keep Bottas behind. Verstappen maybe is going to have a chance to pass him legitimately, but I cannot imagine that Gasly is going to be fighting Verstappen too hard if Max gets half a chance there, and then that'll put a car between he and Valtteri Bottas at this stage as well.
Daniel, could be plan B, could be plan B.
Okay.
So Ricciardo being told it could be plan B out there, which maybe is coming a little earlier and try and get in some clear air or something, because they're stuck very much behind Stroll and Russell in a faster car.
There's not really any clear air to have, though, because they're going to be at the back.
So try to stay close to Verstappen. Gasly might move out of the way.
And the Aston Martin is a car that shouldn't be fourth, quite frankly. Stroll is having a wonderful race in this Grand Prix in the Aston Martin. Got into Q3 yesterday and has a great start. Got ahead of Ricciardo, got ahead of Hamilton. And now he's running a legitimate fourth place. He hasn't got the car of Ricciardo or Hamilton or Perez to try and pass Russell, but he's running in a composed fourth. None of them are going quickly, so there's no gaps for the likes of Ricciardo or anyone to pit. So I can imagine plan B is going to be save the tyres, we're going to go a little bit longer.
Latifi and Giovinazzi having a little scrap over 17th place. Verstappen is still just 0.6 of a second behind Pierre Gasly at the moment, Jenny.
Yeah, just listening across to his radio, actually, and Red Bull just giving him a bit of information, saying that Hamilton's P6 at the moment, and Checo, his teammate, Sergio Perez, is right behind him. I always wonder, if you're Verstappen, how much are you aware of where everybody else is in the field? You know your mission is to try and beat Hamilton. That's your point, but do you know where you are, and you're totally reliant?
He's just gone past Gasly, up the inside at turn 13, the same place as he passed Valtteri Bottas. It was a nice move there from Max Verstappen. So now there is that car between he and the second Mercedes. I don't think he's going to be worried about Hamilton. He's just got to come through the field and focus on his own race at the moment. And he's doing it well, but the next car for him is now Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari. So this will be a big test. Bottas should have been a big test, but Bottas didn't defend and quite frankly should have done at that point if he wanted to help his team a little bit more. But Leclerc's been racy in this opening stint, so I think this one could be a little bit harder.
And Lando Norris, meanwhile, has closed in on the race lead to, well, he's half the lead, basically. It was 2 seconds at one point, but it is now down to 1 second between Sainz and Norris. So a very quick lap on that last lap from Norris. It was 0.7 of a second quicker than Carlos Sainz on that last lap alone. So whether that was an error or not,
yeah, he's starting to hold me up a lot, but should be okay.
In the fight for the lead.
Sainz's pace is dropping. Sainz was slower on the last lap than George Russell in third. So Norris was only 0.3 quicker than Russell. Sainz's pace is dropping. He went hard early on. They built up a 7.5 second lead over Russell in third. Oh, here's Norris.
They're going side by side, coming down into turn 13.
He's starting to hold me up a lot, but should be okay.
Not quite close enough to get through that time.
I need to start pushing, I think.
So Sainz saying, I need to start pushing, I think. And Norris saying he's holding me up. They're 7 seconds clear of Russell in third place, but Norris was really close that time.
It looked like Sainz had an engine problem.
Yeah.
The way he suddenly slowed on the back straight, I thought that was just Norris going through for the lead. Suddenly, from being 1 second back, it looked like Lando was just sweeping past him for the lead of the Grand Prix. He's 0.8 behind the Spaniard for the race lead. And yes, he might think about pushing a little bit more.
Garena on my left front.
Towards turn 2, the McLaren is closing in. Not quite close enough this time around. They know they don't need to start squabbling necessarily, because they've still got Russell as that buffer in third place. Verstappen is only 7/10 back from Charles Leclerc. Leclerc's actually very close to Sebastian Vettel in front as they come down towards turn 2. Vettel covers the inside, Leclerc goes to the outside, can't make the move stick, but Leclerc might get the run coming out into 3, and he has. A very good move from Leclerc.
Garena on my left front.
Hamilton complaining about graining, and Verstappen gets a little bit loose as he's in the dirty air of Leclerc and Vettel side by side in front. Leclerc to the outside of turn 4. Vettel gives him room and holds the place. Really good fighting, and there Leclerc goes for it again. Up the inside, can he make the move stick? They're still side by side, and Verstappen's going to try and take both of them. Coming down towards the right-hander of turn 10, and not quite close enough. Leclerc's out on the sausage curve, and Verstappen has the place. Verstappen up into 12th, Vettel.
Yep, so Russell seems pretty consistent. Stroll losing a little bit of rear.
Copy.
I'm pretty even at the moment, tyres. Both axles similar tech.
Had to back out of it and was quite right to do so. Now he's got to move on Vettel, but hasn't been able to make the pass at turn 13. That's one that will probably come into turn 2 on the next lap. Great scrapping between the two ahead, and Verstappen making the most of it then by passing Leclerc, who ran wide and was kind of cut off really by Vettel at turn 6. Verstappen was so close.
Yeah, nice job keeping.
Is my front wing okay? Yeah, I'll check the front wing.
We'll have a look.
Verstappen fearful that he might have clipped his front wing there. Lando Norris is going to the inside of Carlos Sainz at turn 3, and Sainz moves over quite aggressively. Norris is still in the fight as they come towards turn 4.
Yeah, nice job keeping.
Is my front wing okay? Yeah, I'll check the front wing.
We'll have a look.
For the race win. They're leading the Grand Prix. If Sainz wants to win his first ever race, he's got to keep Norris behind him. There's no, let him through, play the long game. This is for the lead.
Absolutely. Sainz is slow though. He's really slow. He's still 2/10 slower than Russell on the last lap. Russell's Williams that's holding up the rest of the field. And Norris is so much quicker. He's attacking with a car that has good straight line speed. Sainz was complaining on the long run on Friday. Had bad front graining, as we've just heard Lewis Hamilton complain of as well in the Mercedes. That's still in 6th place behind Daniel Ricciardo. And it's a problem. The graining is looking like a problem for Carlos Sainz out front. Now, he's got clear air. He's almost got the easiest way to manage the tyres. But even then, he's under pressure from Norris.
They're lapping the same pace now as Russell behind. That last lap was a 42.3 for Sainz, a 42.2 for Norris. Russell actually was quicker on the previous lap. The gap is now up to 1.5 seconds. So Norris got close, but has now dropped back to being outside of DRS range. Jenny.
Yeah, just listening to Daniel Ricciardo's radio at McLaren, he's giving a lot of feedback to the team about the state of not only his tyres, but also those of Russell and Stroll, saying they're equaling out. Stroll seems to be losing out a little bit, he's saying, so he's trying to help as much as he can to find a way that they can try and pass those cars in front of them that they believe are slower than them. Just worth pointing out as well, Constructors' Championship, McLaren versus Ferrari is the big battle for 3rd place. They're separated at the moment by 13.5 points. McLaren lead that. This is fascinating in that battle.
Someone we shouldn't ignore is Fernando Alonso, who's driving his own race at the moment in 8th. He's not joining the pack that's behind George Russell. It's Russell, Stroll, Ricciardo, Hamilton and Perez all line astern. Alonso's just keeping back from that. He's 3 seconds back on a hard tyre that has durability and shouldn't be graining at this stage. We saw...
Yeah, my front left is completely gone.
So I wouldn't discount him from being a factor with some of these guys later on. When you hold back like he's doing at 3 seconds, you're giving your tyres an easier time. He could probably look ahead and see there's no overtaking going on at this stage. You've got to protect the tyres as number 1. And before the pit stop window, he wants to be cutting that gap down, and he could be a threat.
Yeah, my front left is completely gone.
So Norris saying his front left is completely gone. Only on lap 12 of 53 on the medium tyres. So although they say you can do sort of 40 laps on the hards, if the mediums are going away this quickly, it's not going to be ideal. Russell's pace is closing in on that last lap, a second quicker than Lando Norris, but Norris was in that sort of fight and then dropped back through the order a little bit, or on track a little bit, and then Russell in 3rd. So are we saying Alonso in 8th is still in the discussion for a podium?
Stroll pitting. Stroll pits. Maybe, but there's so much to play out. Stroll's pitting though, and this is going to...
So people are starting to struggle Just make sure that front left, look after it. Handbrake for the right-hand turns when you need it.
Possibly can. Hard tyres on the Aston Martin is not a particularly quick stop, I don't think. But what sort of state are Russell's tyres in third?
Leclerc is close to the back of Verstappen as they come down towards turn 2. Verstappen, for some reason, didn't have the DRS there on Vettel, so must have been out of DRS range, and Leclerc did have DRS and closed in. Stroll comes out now of the pits, and he's got a nice bit of clear air. He's 12 seconds behind Valtteri Bottas in the Mercedes, so that's a decent chunk of clear air for Lance Stroll. Are Williams going to respond to that? And McLaren going to stay out a little longer with Daniel Ricciardo and try in the overcut. Hamilton presumably is going to just stay out for as long as possible on these mediums.
You'd have thought so, but he's also been complaining of graining.
Yeah, I'm so through the last sector, it's incredible.
Okay, Mick. Tsunoda ahead, also struggling with graining. Other people in traffic too. Nikita's under pressure now from Giovinazzi. Hopefully this graining will clear a bit. I guess you can hang back there with a bit of a gap until an opportunity comes. At this point, though, we want to just keep going because opportunities will come by running longer.
Carlos Sainz. Will Sainz decide to pit this time around as a response to that? No. So Norris stays out and Verstappen gets Vettel. Max Verstappen gets ahead of Sebastian Vettel up into 10th position then. So Verstappen making good progress. Norris made the pass from a relatively long way back, but it was not just. And Russell pits as well in the Williams. Norris just breezed past Sainz there.
Yeah, it was a bit like the time before. The Ferrari's got no straight line speed on the back straight.
Got him.
Norris says got him.
And he did the fastest lap of the race on the last lap as well, Lando Norris. So he's obviously, maybe it's a bluff the old tyres are going, because he's found a bit of pace and he's got the...
Got him.
George Russell, the front left in particular, took a while to go on. He's going to emerge from the pits. Where is he compared to Lance Stroll? Stroll is coming down the start-finish straight now, and Russell is behind Stroll. So Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin has got ahead of George Russell and up into 14th position at the moment. But that is a net third place currently, but Ricciardo, Hamilton and Perez are now all released into clear air. Also, Hamilton will have the DRS and Ricciardo doesn't have DRS anymore, so Hamilton, this will be his opportunity to get ahead of the McLaren.
Yeah, the race is changing right now. There's a chance that Stroll could theoretically do the 40 laps that Pirelli thought were possible on the hard tyres, and George Russell as well, but he's pitted and he's come out behind Bottas, Leclerc, Verstappen and everyone that started on those hard tyres at the back. That's going to be a tough one now. I think Verstappen has a great chance of beating the likes of Stroll because he's got track position. If he pits at the end, they'll be on a very used hard tyre and he could fly through.
So things are starting to move around up front. Stroll has pitted, Russell has now pitted.
Okay, let's see what pace they got now.
Back from Norris. So Carlos Sainz 3 seconds back from Lando Norris, the Ferrari team running out into the pit lane with a set of hard tyres ready to go. Where is Sainz going to emerge? You would think he's going to emerge in 13th place ahead of Stroll and Russell. Hamilton, so it's now McLaren 1-2. Norris ahead of Ricciardo by 7.5 seconds. Then a second back to Hamilton. Slow stop this time for Ferrari. Not great stops out there. And we're not actually getting any timings on the stop, so I can't tell you how quick or slow that was, but wasn't ideal for Carlos Sainz. He's emerging from the pits now, and Stroll's got an opportunity here. Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin coming down towards turn 2. He's not quite close enough to get the Ferrari, but he's gained an awful lot of time compared to Carlos Sainz. So Sainz, Stroll and Russell are in that order as we wait for everyone.
Fighting Mazepin out of the pits, overtake available.
Second quicker than those at the front on the last lap on his hard tyres. So that's why Stroll's making it happen at the moment. By pitting for the hard tyres, the undercut is working because the tyres are graining. Those that started on the mediums struggling. Sainz awful for pace before he pitted on those mediums, really destroying them with graining at the start. And that's why I think he was forced to pit to try and cover off Lance Stroll. So he's still effectively in a sort of net second place. Yeah, and crucially, they're going quicker right now than Ricciardo and Hamilton, who are second and third. So Hamilton, if he pits now, he would undercut Ricciardo, but he'd still be behind Russell, Stroll and Sainz. So he's not in undercut range of Daniel Ricciardo. He's doing a personal best on this lap.
I think it's a little good space, so I can continue.
Fernando, what do you think about target lap? How far past it?
Everything seems okay. I'm picking up some vibrations now, that's the only thing.
So Lando Norris saying he's feeling okay.
I think it's a lot of good pace, so I can continue.
And Lando, what do you think about target lap? How far past it?
Everything seems okay. I'm picking up some vibrations now, that's the only thing.
So coming in too early might sound like a good option now, but towards the end of this, it might leave you very vulnerable.
Charles Leclerc very close to the back of Verstappen coming down towards turn 2 in the Ferrari. They are now in 6th and 7th places, but have yet to pit. Norris leads, has yet to pit. Ricciardo second, yet to pit. Hamilton third, yet to pit. Perez, Alonso, Verstappen, Leclerc, the top 7 who have all yet to pit.
It was Ocon and Raikkonen that pitted, has just released Max Verstappen finally from a bit of a midfield gaggle to having a bit of clear air now. They've got 5 seconds to Fernando Alonso. Verstappen finally can use the pace of the Red Bull, see what he's got, to try and get away from Leclerc, who's actually just been stalking him since Verstappen passed him in that fight with Sebastian Vettel as well. But now Verstappen could close the gap. He's only 7.5 seconds back from Hamilton.
He's doing the fastest lap of the Grand Prix on this lap.
And he started 20th, Hamilton started 4th. There's 7 seconds between them, and Hamilton is still stuck in behind Daniel Ricciardo, and they're going slower than Stroll, and similar pace to Russell at the moment. That's going to be tight to see if Ricciardo can overcut Russell and that group. If not, they're going to come out behind them as they were, but have a bigger tyre advantage. But Verstappen can now close up, and remember Fernando Alonso, he's still less than 2 seconds back from Perez, and also on the hard tyre, so he's going to come into play a little bit more as well.
So Norris and Ricciardo are the top 2, but Norris has an 8-second lead over Daniel Ricciardo, and then Ricciardo, Hamilton, Perez, Alonso, all in a line, and on that last lap, Max Verstappen in 6th place goes 1.3 seconds quicker, well 1.2 seconds quicker than Lewis Hamilton in 3rd position. So big lap that from Max Verstappen, and Hamilton wasn't quite close enough to get Daniel Ricciardo that time to turn 2.
He was close though, he was really close, and he was nearly a second behind as they came across the start-finish line. So the slipstream and the straight line speed of the Mercedes is big. He's got to make it through, Lewis Hamilton, soon. He's right on the back of Daniel Ricciardo now in the end of the first sector. They're coming into turn 4. But it's the final sector, as Verstappen was complaining about before. That's the crucial part. Mercedes power in the back of the McLaren. Hamilton knows it's difficult to pass these McLarens. He's experienced that firsthand last time out. But at least Ricciardo's got no DRS now, and Hamilton had a big closing speed on the last lap.
Lando Norris continuing to lead and continuing to pretty much match his best laps of the race on that last lap. The same is true of Daniel Ricciardo and Lewis Hamilton. In fact, all 3 of them were within 1/10 of a second of their best lap. Hamilton has the DRS this time, coming into 13 on Daniel Ricciardo, but he's still not quite close enough. But this is going to be a really big opportunity coming into turn 2, down the start finish.
Okay, so that lap time is to protect against cars that haven't stopped yet. So we're looking for high 41 lap times.
To lose in sort of the bigger picture.
I think Hamilton was a bit hot into turn 13, and that might have just let Ricciardo off the hook for another lap. It looks like Hamilton's got a lot more pace through the first 2/3 of the lap, but he was a bit hot into the left-right at turn 13. Comes through, and he's still within a second, but he's 9/10 back over the line. It might be too far back once again to make a move on Ricciardo. Moves to the middle of the road just to try and break the slipstream. But Hamilton too far back. He's really close in the braking zone. He needs 1 or 2 more tenths, and he's going to be there.
It's a similar situation, isn't it, to him trying to pass Lando Norris at Imola earlier this year. He's just a 10th or 2 too far back at the start of the straight, meaning he's not quite there at the end, but just that 1 extra tenth, and suddenly he'll be able to breeze past. Here's Norris's radio.
I think the track improvement is masking the jag at the moment, but pace is still good. I think the track improvement is masking the jag at the moment, but pace is still good.
Behind Lewis Hamilton, and another fastest lap. He's more than a second quicker than Hamilton. He's going to be there in no time at all. There's Fernando Alonso ahead. Then it's his teammate Sergio Perez, who I would have thought will jump out the way. And then, hey presto, it's going to be Verstappen and Hamilton again, unless Lewis Hamilton can clear Daniel Ricciardo. He's close. And it's going to be crucial for the whole outcome of his afternoon that he clears Ricciardo. The Mercedes got so much pace.
It's Lando Norris who's leading this Grand Prix. He lost the lead at the start. He was on pole position, but Carlos Sainz got ahead. Norris retook him on the 13th lap of the race and still leads and has yet to pit. Lewis Hamilton, though, is third at the moment. He's yet to make his pit stop, and he's stuck up behind Norris's teammate Daniel Ricciardo. And Max Verstappen is now only 3 places behind Hamilton, despite Hamilton starting 4th.
So Lewis, pace to the cars that have stopped already is slightly slower, but it's not a big difference. We are still going to go for that target +8.
It's a tricky one to sum up in 20 seconds, isn't it?
A lot going on.
Yeah.
There's so much going on, and we've still got no idea how this is working out. Ricciardo is reversed from Monza at the moment for the McLarens. Daniel Ricciardo is helping Lando Norris win this race as it stands. 10 seconds the gap. Norris has got some pace. He's 0.6 a lap quicker than Daniel Ricciardo. But if Hamilton could pass Ricciardo, the pace of that Mercedes will be good enough that he can close towards Norris, and then we'll be into a crucial pit stop phase, so long as he's got the tyres to go long enough. But he's at the moment not able to get there, and he's going to use the pit stop phase to try and pass Ricciardo or do something about Ricciardo. But don't forget, Sainz, Stroll, Russell, they're all going quicker than these guys. So when Hamilton and Ricciardo pit, they're going to come out behind that group that they were behind earlier on.
Lap 19 of 53. Jenny?
Yeah, just thinking about Max Verstappen, obviously didn't take part in qualifying yesterday because they knew he was going to start from the back after the engine penalty and 3-place grid penalty from last time out in the crash with Hamilton. They set his car up totally tuned in just for this race. How much can they do that?
You just got to tune it to be as quick as you possibly can, really, depending on where you are. You can trim a bit of downforce out if you know you're doing a lot of overtaking, but you still got to be quick when you've got the free air, and that's what sort of dominates the race. You've got to be quick as well through the corners, so if you tune out too much downforce, you just can't get close enough through sector 3, and it can be really costly. You can't even pick up the DRS.
And does less downforce cost you tyre life as well?
And a bit of that, you slide around more. And you can, you end up...
Still looking at a top 5 finish.
Through turn 3.
Still looking at a top 5 finish.
So that's Valtteri Bottas being told he's still looking at a top 5 finish.
Well, they must be assuming then that those that have already pitted will pit again. I think that's what Mercedes are assuming then with Bottas. He has track position over Sainz, Stroll and Russell. He's 2.5 seconds ahead of Sainz. He can play a team game now by holding those guys back. And it would help Hamilton because they're in an overcut battle, basically, Ricciardo and Hamilton, with those that have already pitted. And Bottas has to make his one and only pit stop. But if those that have already pitted have to make a second pit stop, they had higher degradation. If they can't get to the end, then Bottas is quids in over them. So interesting dynamic there. He's still stuck behind Pierre Gasly. He's made no progress in this Grand Prix at all. Quite how he'll end up 5th without overtaking anyone, I don't quite understand, but...
Get ready to undercut him.
Happen anyway, but there's a long way to go.
Verstappen now is right on the back of Fernando Alonso in the Alpine, both on the same hard tyre. And if Verstappen gets past Alonso, the next car in the queue is basically Lewis Hamilton, because it's actually Sergio Perez in the other Red Bull. He will jump out of the way.
Get ready to undercut him.
Hamilton says get ready to undercut him. That's what they're aiming for with, or what he wants them to be aiming for with the McLaren of Daniel Ricciardo coming down into turn 2. This time, Hamilton not close enough again.
But what he doesn't know is they can't undercut him because they're going to be behind the pack that have already pitted. And that's what Lewis doesn't know from at the cockpit of his Mercedes. 41.8 for he and Ricciardo in second and third. But Carlos Sainz was a second quicker than that on the last lap. Lance Stroll was 0.7 quicker. George Russell was 0.2 quicker. So you can undercut Ricciardo, but you're still going to be stuck in all that traffic with slightly better tyres. Maybe he can make some progress. I'm sure he can make progress because they've also separated slightly, Sainz, Stroll and Russell.
Well, 25 seconds for a pit stop would put Hamilton at about 37 seconds off the race lead. So as you say, he would still come out behind Sainz, Stroll and maybe just about with Russell.
And if Hamilton pits, it's going to be wonderful news for Lando Norris, who's now 12 seconds clear at the front of the pack. That's his one and only pit stop taken, and he's not managed to put any pressure on even second place in this Grand Prix. Lando Norris doing very well out front and managing to mind his own business at the moment.
Yeah, really strong race this from Lando Norris. Carlos Sainz, who was in the lead initially, is now in 11th place, having made his pit stop. He's the first of the pit stoppers, so it's Sainz in 11th, Stroll in 12th, Russell 13th, Ocon 15th, Raikkonen, Schumacher, Latifi, Tsunoda and Mazepin, the drivers who have pitted. So really, only...
Ham 0.9. Correction, Ham does not have DRS.
Doing something different.
Well, they pitted into clear air, but the problem is that clear air's gone now.
Perez is close to the back of Hamilton, coming down into turn 2. Hamilton had to cover the inside a little bit, and as a result, he wasn't within the second to get the DRS off Daniel Ricciardo, so Perez had a real run, but wasn't able to make the move yet.
Similar thing for Perez, as has been the case for Hamilton in recent laps. Not quite close enough, but at least managed to just force Lewis Hamilton to skip towards the middle of the road to ensure that Perez didn't send a lunge down the inside. I mean, Perez is securing his contract with Red Bull for next season, but what a role he could play if he could get ahead of Hamilton in this one and give a bit of a buffer for Hamilton to Ricciardo. Of course, Ricciardo still wants to... The McLaren will want Ricciardo to cover off Hamilton at the stops.
Yeah, good races from Perez, Jenny.
Just looking at Lando Norris, is starting to build on that lead, going a little bit faster at the moment. If he were to come in for a pit stop, they're reckoning it's around 24 to 25 seconds for a pit. Pop him out in 8th.
Okay, Lando, gap to Vettel 25.4. This is almost the Germany situation. We want to extend if we can, but no risk. Pace is good.
Almost the Germany situation. Palmer's memory?
Nope.
Have we had a German race this year?
Nope.
Okay, great. Lap 23 of 53, and Mercedes are out, and in comes Ricciardo. So Mercedes, did they come out to try and undercut Ricciardo, but McLaren have got there first potentially. Here comes Daniel Ricciardo then into the pit lane. Mercedes were ready, unless it was for Bottas, but Bottas was on the hards, and they had hards ready, so it was for Hamilton, but it's McLaren who come in then. Off go the tyres, on go the hard tyres. It's another sticky stop. It's really sticky, for no real reason it seems, and Ricciardo loses a lot of...
Okay, Lando, gap to Vettel 25.4. This is almost the Germany situation. We want to extend if we can, but no risk. Pace is good.
Ricciardo, the front right was slightly slow, but then it looked like all the tyres were changed, and again, a bit like Verstappen stop in Monza, there was no real obvious reason for the delay. Now he peels back on, but he's behind Esteban Ocon, who has pitted. So he's lost a huge amount of time there, Daniel Ricciardo.
Wow, real frustration for he, and now the stress level, Jenny, will go up at McLaren for the Norris pit stop when it comes.
Yeah, they need to get that one right for sure. As we were saying, if they can get that pit stop and just extend a little bit at the moment, the gap, they could come out into a nice bit of space. And just having a look at that pit stop again for Daniel Ricciardo, they're having a few issues, all of the teams up and down the pit lane, because of the sequencing that they're using with these pit guns. It's now got to be a manual release as opposed to an automated release before they change the regulations, and that's just meaning...
He's lost his toe, come on.
You can be a little trigger happy.
That's Perez getting some encouragement there, but it also I feel like every pit stop today has just been a bit clunky, getting the tyres off or getting one tyre. It's not felt like that beautiful ballet that you tend to see. I swear, every pit stop, it's all just felt a bit.
None of them seem sweet. Seemed yeah, exactly. It's in the 2 seconds or even a 2.5 at the moment. But that was a really slow one for McLaren. I mean, hopefully for Lando Norris's sake, they can learn from that and make sure that they get everything right for the next one. I'm really surprised they pitted Ricciardo, because now they've released Lewis Hamilton, and Hamilton's just done a personal best lap of the race of 1 minute 40.2, half a second quicker than Lando Norris. I mean, here's Verstappen.
Okay, copy, Max.
I can't turn the car.
I can't turn the car.
Okay, he's got under.
Okay, copy, Max.
I can't turn the car.
Then, and it's horrible when you're driving and the front tyres are just not gripping the surface as they once were. The rubber just balls up and you lose a bit of contact patch, and Verstappen then frustrated behind Fernando Alonso, still 1 second back in that queue, but now Hamilton's been released with that Ricciardo pit stop, and Verstappen will see him probably disappear up the road now. Sergio Perez was the driver that was given a bit of motivation. Okay, Lewis has lost his toe, but it was very optimistic. I think the fact that he's lost his toe means he's going to absolutely bolt off now from ahead of Perez, if he possibly can anyway, but he's looking like he's going to do the fastest lap of the Grand Prix on this lap, Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, on these 25-lap old tyres, Hamilton comes through the final corner and he's going to pull out a couple of seconds, I think, on Sergio Perez on this lap alone. Lap 25 of 53, so approaching half race distance. Norris leads, as yet to stop. Hamilton does the fastest lap of the race, which is 7/10 quicker than Lando Norris in the lead. Perez third, yet to stop. Alonso fourth, yet to stop. Verstappen, Leclerc, Vettel, Gasly, Bottas, the 9 drivers yet to stop.
What have McLaren done? By pitting Daniel Ricciardo, they have unleashed the beast that is Lewis Hamilton in second place. 7/10 quicker on the last lap than Norris. He's clearly got tyre life. He was not able to use that when he was behind Ricciardo. Best case for McLaren, or best case for Mercedes at that point. Hamilton undercuts Ricciardo and Ricciardo's out of contention with it, but he's still stuck behind Russell, Stroll, Sainz, and he's not able to get close to Norris in any sort of pit stop phase, but suddenly he's got some pace.
I've got your message, Max.
Yeah, now Lewis is just pulling away while Williams guy was super close.
There's not much space behind, to be honest with you.
So that's basically what we were discussing there, is what Verstappen's issue is with pitting, because they're like, well, we can't pit you because we haven't really...
I'll try to hang in there.
Okay.
That clear air is going to go and chase down Lando Norris, and he's going to overcut that group of cars, Sainz, Stroll and Russell. He's a second and a half quicker than Sainz on the last lap. If he can not grain the front tyres and keep up this pace, he's going to soon be in a position where he can pit and come out ahead of everyone that pitted earlier on. It's a move from McLaren that was to try and keep Ricciardo ahead of Hamilton, but I think it was optimistic to think that they were going to do that anyway in the long haul. But what they've done is release Hamilton into clear air in the Mercedes that's by far the quickest car out there. And he's going quickly, 1 second quicker than Lando Norris on the last lap.
Ricciardo was 1 second quicker than Lewis Hamilton on the last lap, so you see the thinking, and in theory, the theory is there. If Hamilton were to then pit, then it would be right. But they've assumed Hamilton would pit, but
on update on tires when you can.
Yeah, struggling.
For him. Slow stop and Hamilton unleashing some pace. I'll tell you what, Perez is going with him as well, though. Perez is actually doing a good job at the moment, 1.2 seconds back. Good effort from Perez. It shows how much they were all being bunched up behind Daniel Ricciardo. Was Ricciardo playing a big team game for Lando Norris, dropping back and giving Norris a big buffer? Struggle to believe he would have done it to that extent, but it's certainly everyone now has got the pace to go much quicker. Fernando Alonso is roughly going with them as well.
Well, Ricciardo did struggle for pace in the dry, didn't he, over the course of the weekend? So that may well be his best pace that he has. Lap 26 of 53, Gal.
Yeah, just listening to a few whispers up and down the pit lane of paddock, it seems like there are a few spots of rain starting to come into the pit lane.
We are looking to a P5 finish, going ahead like this. You're doing a good job.
Only P5.
We are looking to a P5 finish, going ahead like this. You're doing a good job.
Only P5.
Yes, he is. So Lewis Hamilton from second place pits, and he will put on a set of the hard tyres to go to the end of the Russian Grand Prix. How neat and tidy is this pit stop going to be for Mercedes? Verstappen pits as well. On go the hards. It is a nice clean stop for the Mercedes squad, and then Verstappen dives in behind. He's coming off the hards and onto the mediums, so a nice clean stop for Red Bull as well. So in theory, Verstappen will have a tyre advantage over Hamilton in this second half of the Grand Prix. Are they going to come out together, or is Ricciardo, I think, maybe going to split them? Meanwhile, Sainz is attacking Valtteri Bottas. Carlos Sainz up the inside of Bottas, and that is now 6th place for Sainz. Bottas has yet to stop, so if that's a sort of fight for net position, that's not ideal. Hamilton has come out then in front of Ricciardo, only just by...
Lando, how many more laps at this pace can you do?
I don't know, it feels very consistent at the moment. I feel like 10, but I'm not sure.
Because Ricciardo was then going quickly on his new hard tyres, but now Hamilton can go quickly. He's got 4 seconds to make up, then it's Lance Stroll.
Lando, how many more laps at this pace can you do?
I don't know, it feels very consistent at the moment. I feel like 10, but I'm not sure.
Lando Norris is in comfortable land, isn't he? His last lap was only half a second quicker than his best lap of the Grand Prix, which he probably set with a bit of DRS or something like that.
But Hamilton can now go 2 seconds a lap quicker than Norris. It was about 11.5 seconds when he pitted. So he's got a few laps of buffer, and then he can pit and emerge ahead of Hamilton. But where's that going to put him in relation to Stroll and Sainz as well? So Hamilton is still behind Stroll and Sainz, who have pitted onto a hard tyre. And that's
but just look after the front left, please. It's a long stint.
Then Sainz has overtaken Bottas for track position there.
Yeah, given how he grained his tyres in the first stint.
Okay, Lando, 100% pace, please. 100% pace.
Confirm.
100% pace is the request for Lando Norris.
Perez is going quickly. Personal best lap of the race for Sergio Perez, 1 minute 39.5. That's only 4/10 down on Ricciardo's fastest lap of the Grand Prix.
Verstappen is going ahead of George Russell. Max Verstappen to the inside of the Williams coming into turn 2, and Verstappen now gains a place.
Okay, Lando, we will be boxing this lap. We are going to box this lap.
Confirm.
Yeah, Norris, it was a weird sort of position for Norris, wasn't it? Because he was basically saying, I feel like I can drive for 10 more laps on these tyres, but presumably not. But it feels like I can.
He's in a great place, though. He can pit now for some hard tyres. McLaren need a good stop, and he'll emerge.
As I say, this is a long stint for this compound, Max, so please be careful with it initially. It will be a deg race at the end.
5th place, and he's going to have a nice buffer still to the cars behind. So this needs to be a good stop from Norris, for the McLaren crew for Norris.
And that's where the tension is going to be, because the pit stop for Daniel Ricciardo was not neat and tidy at all. In comes Norris now from the race lead, looking for his first Formula 1 victory. Norris pulls into his McLaren pit stop. Off go the medium tyres, on go the hard tyres. The car is down and released, sweet as a nut. And it's 2.9 seconds, that one for Lando Norris, and he should emerge still ahead of Carlos Sainz. Here he comes now towards the pit lane exit. He's able to release the pit limiter now, and he's well clear of Carlos Sainz.
Some nice clear air for Norris as well. Perez now leads from Alonso, from Leclerc. They all started on the hard tyres. Bottas pits from his hard tyres. Now he's going to switch onto the mediums and go to the end. Nice pit stop for Mercedes. But Norris then is 8 seconds away from Charles Leclerc on a tyre that can happily get to the end of the Grand Prix with no one immediately pressuring him. He's still got 5.5 seconds to Sainz. Hamilton passes Stroll.
So Lewis Hamilton crucially gets ahead of Lance Stroll up into 7th position. So that is a positional gain. We'll give you the sort of approximate where they're running at the moment in a moment. Jenny.
Yeah, Lando Norris, they know at McLaren they needed to release him into as much air as possible so that he can utilise the benefit of these new tyres that they've put on, the hard tyres. If they can do that, they can try and consolidate their lead when this all shuffles out. A really good job from McLaren there.
So Norris is net leading the Grand Prix. Second at the moment, I would suggest, is still Carlos Sainz, with Hamilton 3rd, but Perez is going to filter back into there somewhere.
You can forget Sainz. Hamilton's going to gobble him up on the next lap. It's Norris v Hamilton at the moment.
And tyres are healthy. Try to give it a go with Gasly.
Tires are
Healthy, you can push.
See?
And tyres are healthy. Try to give it a go with Gasly.
Tires are
Healthy, you can push.
Tyres are healthy, Sainz is being told. You can try and push with Gasly. Perez does a 39.5 on that last lap. That was a second quicker than Hamilton's going in this traffic. Okay, he's cleared Stroll, but he's still got Gasly and Sainz up in front of him. Here they come across the line, and Hamilton does a 38.8. That's better for Lewis Hamilton, and he's now riding the slipstream here to pass Carlos Sainz. Coming into turn 2, how hard is the Ferrari driver going to defend? He's also getting the tow from Gasly in front, but Hamilton sends it into turn 2, and Hamilton is passed. So that is now a net second place, you would suggest, but Perez is, they're not a million miles out of Perez's window.
Lewis, you can win this race.
That's Toto Wolff coming on the radio, which is fair.
Lewis, you can win this race.
Back from Lando Norris now, in the fastest car. he can push to the end, and it's whether he can pass Lando for the win is where Hamilton's at. He's behind Pierre Gasly. He'll make it past the Frenchman very, very shortly. Gasly hasn't pitted still. And then it's just Hamilton 5th, chasing Norris in 4th. As you say, Perez hasn't pitted. Verstappen in the other Red Bull is 1 second behind Daniel Ricciardo, but we know how hard Ricciardo is to pass. Verstappen was a bit of a premature stop from Red Bull.
Hamilton going for the move on Gasly, gets it done into 13. So Lewis Hamilton now ahead of Pierre Gasly. So he's carving his way through the field. He's passed Stroll, Sainz and Gasly on the last 3 laps, Lewis Hamilton, and is now in 5th position, which is a net 2nd place. And he is just 7 seconds or so behind Lando Norris, who's in the net lead of the Grand Prix. How long are Perez, Alonso and Leclerc?
Can check the front left of the wing. I'm touching a lot. I don't know if it's sparkles.
Yes, we are checking. Reminder, we have graining there.
Is effectively the leader of the race once everybody has pitted, but Lewis Hamilton is now charging through the order. He's passed 3 cars on the last 3 laps, and he's now in a net 2nd position, 8 seconds back from Lando Norris, and lapping very quickly. So it looks like it's going to be Norris versus Hamilton for the win in the Russian Grand Prix. Yeah, so Verstappen's now struck when because there was a time, wasn't there, where there was only really 1 car between he and Hamilton, and that would have been Perez.
They pitted early, I think. They pitted too early. He's going to have Alonso still to come out of the pits ahead of Verstappen as well. He's going to have his teammates still ahead. He made good ground on the medium tyres he's on now, but now he's stuck in behind Ricciardo first, then it's Stroll, then it's Sainz and Gasly. They're all in a DRS train. I think Red Bull done that pit stop a little bit early, and they've let Verstappen out into a load of traffic. They were trying to get away from the traffic of Alonso, but they've put Verstappen into a really stodgy window here, and he needs to do some overtaking on track.
Carlos Sainz is trying to get ahead of Pierre Gasly, who's going very long into this Grand Prix, and Daniel Ricciardo is fighting hard with Lance Stroll, and Verstappen is now getting involved in this fight too. So Ricciardo now ahead of Stroll, and now Stroll will be under attack from Verstappen, who will try and follow Ricciardo through, basically. As they come up towards turn 2, he'll have a really good opportunity. They're coming into the final couple of corners now. Hamilton sets the fastest lap of the race, 8 tenths quicker than Lando Norris. The gap comes down to 7 seconds. Verstappen will have this one easy pickings on the back of Stroll, who pitted a long time ago. His tyres are not in as good condition. Although that's a quick Aston Martin in a...
Keep on pushing on here, Checo. It's really good pace.
What's the pace of the people around? Give me more information.
Hamilton's cleared the traffic. His last lap of 38.0. But he's obviously on fresh tyres. This is right on the money.
Hamilton by 7.1 seconds. They're actually 4th and 5th, but the top 3 all must pit. Verstappen then passes Stroll, which means he's behind Ricciardo and Sainz. Then it's Hamilton and Norris, so that should be effectively 5th, apart from we've got Perez and Alonso to pit, which will mean that he's going to be roughly 7th. Going to be tight with Alonso though, so it could be 6th. the play out of this one still is really up in the air. One thing's for sure, Verstappen and Red Bull would love Lando Norris to hold on to the win of this one, because Hamilton now is away from them. He closed up Verstappen in that window when Hamilton was behind Ricciardo, but ever since Ricciardo pitted, Hamilton now is able to use the fresh pace of the Mercedes, and he's launching this race win bid from anonymity in the first half of the Grand Prix. Now he can sense that there's a chance here.
Across the line they come, lap 33 of 53. Perez leads, Alonso 2nd, Leclerc 3rd. None of those 3 have pitted, so it is a net race lead for Lando Norris in 4th position at the moment, and Norris is getting closed in on by Lewis Hamilton. That last lap, it was another 6 tenths of a second that Hamilton took out of Lando Norris. So by that reckoning, 5, 6, 7 laps time, Hamilton will be close to the back of Norris, and close enough to attempt an overtake. Will he be able to pull it off though? That's going to be the question. Now there's this little queue still up behind Pierre Gasly, so it's Gasly in 6th, who has still yet to pit. Then it's Sainz, Ricciardo and Verstappen all trying to get ahead of the AlphaTauri. Gasly struggled yesterday in qualifying, was furious with his qualifying effort. He's having an okay race today, but I don't
Mick, we have to box now, box to retire the car. We cannot resolve the issue and it's a decaying situation. I'm sorry about that, so box now please to retire the car.
For Verstappen, the same way that Hamilton's had this headache early on at DRS train. It was behind George Russell for third early on. This is now behind Pierre Gasly for sixth.
Mick, we have to box now, box to retire the car. We cannot resolve the issue and it's a decaying situation. I'm sorry about that, so box now please to retire the car.
Mick Schumacher in the Haas out of the Grand Prix. Perez still leads, Alonso second, Leclerc third.
So Gasly sixth, here's Sainz now with a good chance.
Coming into 13, he just doesn't fancy the inside there, does he, into 13? And Gasly covers it off. Tries to get the run now, coming up into the chicane of 15 and 16. And Ricciardo is right in there as well. Verstappen right in there too. Stroll is actually coming back into the fray a little bit out, and that's perfect for Carlos Sainz because...
Valtteri, get those guys in front of you for points. Valtteri, get those guys in front of you for points.
Bottas being told to get some overtaking done, and Norris gets ahead of Charles Leclerc, does he? They're still side by side coming through turn 3, but Norris gets Leclerc and is up into third place. Leclerc still yet to pit though, but important that Norris didn't lose too much time there.
Yep, efficiently done there from Norris at the first lap of asking anyway, past Leclerc. Leclerc tried to fight back through turn 3, but is on the old tyres that he started with, 34 laps old now, and Norris with newer hard tyres just able to go through.
Only Hamilton a second quicker on that last lap compared to Lando Norris, whilst Norris was stuck behind and trying to pass Charles Leclerc. But Sainz now, well, we'll see whether Sainz actually has the pace, whether it was Gasly holding everyone up or Gasly and Sainz being at a similar pace and holding everybody up. Norris is doing a personal best lap on this tour, lap 34.
Okay, Alonso 25 ahead, so we need to follow these guys to get him out of our window.
30 seconds, well, pretty much exactly 30 seconds to Carlos Sainz. He's going to come out a long way ahead of this battle. Fernando Alonso is still going to come out with them because they've all lost a load of time with Pierre Gasly. Now that Gasly's pitted, what pace does Sainz have? Can he pick it up to stay clear of Fernando Alonso, who's now 7 seconds off the race lead?
A couple more laps like this, Alonso can get fourth place. You're absolutely right.
Exactly. This is, it looks on paper like the fight for third of those have pitted, but you can't discount the top two who haven't pitted, and particularly Sergio Perez, who's going well. Perez is going to switch to the medium tyres, should be quite soon. Can he launch an attack with Hamilton and get towards Norris? The pace that he's had actually in clear air in this race has been really strong. So Perez it's possible that he's a threat later on if Hamilton gets a bit bunched up behind Norris. Jenny.
I know people have still got to...
Beautiful work, Lewis.
Stand right now if it ended like this. Red Bull and Mercedes would be tied on points, 373.5 points each. It's clearly not going to end like this, but I just thought it was a fascinating bit of news to tell you.
Yeah, it's tight stuff, isn't it? And Bottas is not really anywhere today. When you compare it to, I mean, Leclerc up in fourth, also started on the hard tyres. When we'll see where he emerges, he'll probably be ahead of Bottas, I guess, somewhere around Ocon Raikkonen region potentially, but compare Bottas to Verstappen and it hasn't been much progress from the Finn today.
Well, he was great last time out, wasn't he?
Yeah.
To give him his dues, Valtteri Bottas from the back to the podium, but this is more what you tend to see.
Hamilton has passed Leclerc now, so Lewis Hamilton has got ahead of Charles Leclerc and up into fourth position, still in net second place, but he seemed to dispense of Leclerc fairly quickly on that lap, and that's coming into turn 13. Hamilton's made that move then.
4 seconds back from Norris, only 4.5 seconds. Hamilton.
Nice. Next car's Sainz.
Way that Norris is going to have to go with a Mercedes breathing down his neck for a race win that would mean so much to Lewis Hamilton as well. In the championship battle, every point counts, and there's a 7-point gain if he can take the win. Norris, of course, aiming for his first win. They're both on hard tyres to go to the end. Norris a couple of laps fresher, but it should be an irrelevance with a hard tyre that's not really degrading.
Oh, it's a slow stop from Leclerc, the left rear. In the Ferrari, 5 seconds that pit stop, so he's going to emerge outside of the points-paying positions, I would have thought. He might even be behind Valtteri Bottas, you know. Hamilton, of course, still looking for his 100th Formula One win after hitting 99 at Silverstone. He's only won one Grand Prix in the last 10, Lewis Hamilton. Bottas and Leclerc are side by side, and Leclerc and Bottas locks up, and Leclerc gets the place. So that's 13th place for Charles Leclerc. Bottas 14th. We heard Toto.
Yeah, it's just hard with the tyres this close.
Copy. Alonso's picked his pace up, 40.1.
Miserable, miserable. Started off thinking that they were going to be fighting for a top 5 not long ago.
It's a pretty good pace, huh?
This pace is very good, Lewis.
Hamilton happy with his pace. Norris is now getting held up behind Fernando Alonso for second position. Perez and Alonso yet to pit, but this is going to cost Norris. It's now only 3.5 seconds back to Hamilton. And Alonso pits. Perez pits as well from the lead of the Grand Prix. Lando Norris has just taken the lead of the race back because Sergio Perez in the Red Bull has pitted and he's now rejoining the circuit. It's a very slow pit stop actually for Sergio Perez, so he had a chance of a podium, but it doesn't look that way. The battle is now going to be Lando.
You think Alonso's boxing? Let's push as much as we can now.
I'm pushing.
Who's just 3 seconds back and closing in. Full commentary on the BBC Sport website. Horrible pit stop then for Perez. 9 seconds. And suddenly he's down in 5th place, only just ahead of his teammate Max Verstappen. So 5th and 6th. I mean, I wouldn't say that was intentional from Red Bull to get Verstappen an extra place or something.
No, that's way too far-fetched, I think. Perez, that's just cost him a chance of a podium and even a chance to try and fight with the top 2. Remember, he's going to be on fresh tyres. Medium tyres, charging, but a horrible stop means he's lost place. He's just ahead of Max Verstappen still.
It was the rear right. Couldn't get it off, I think.
Yeah, slow to come off.
And that's a very uncharacteristic mistake from Red Bull.
So now Perez is 5th, Verstappen is 6th, but to be honest, Perez has got the best chance to try and pass Ricciardo and Sainz. He's on fresher tyres. What do Red Bull do? Do they swap the places now to give Verstappen...
And Lando Perez had a slow stop, so 3rd place is Sainz. Then
Okay, yeah. No more.
Lando's like, yep, no, I get it. So, Norris leading, 2 seconds ahead of Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton is coming. Sainz is 3rd, Ricciardo is 4th, Perez is 5th, Verstappen is 6th, Alonso, Stroll, Russell, Ocon, the top 10. I think you've got it. If you're Red Bull, you're just swapping Perez and Verstappen now, aren't you? The attitude they've taken over the course of the season. If I'm the team boss, if I'm Christian Horner, I think I'm doing that.
No, what's the point in doing that? Verstappen can't pass Ricciardo. He's still stuck behind him. Perez has got a chance to pass him, and in doing so, he might jostle Ricciardo out of position for Verstappen to come through as well.
Okay.
He's no use.
Okay, let's be smart here what we do with that front left.
2 points for the championship, that's all.
I think Alonso has just got ahead of Max Verstappen, who must have made a mistake somewhere.
Yeah, Alonso ahead of Verstappen coming into turn 2. So the Alpine driver gets ahead, and Verstappen is down to 7th place, so won't be swapping now then, I wouldn't have thought. Perez is only half a second or so back from Daniel Ricciardo in 4th place. Hamilton now 1.9 seconds back from Lando Norris in the McLaren, and is setting the fastest lap of the race this time around. And, well, yeah, Verstappen wasn't close enough to Perez, and Alonso just sent it into turn 2, easy peasy.
Meek defence from Verstappen. Stayed on the racing line, didn't brake particularly late, and you don't need to give Fernando Alonso a second chance to make a move. Straight through on the inside, and Verstappen falls from 6th to 7th. The possible cost of a couple of championship points, probable cost of 4 at that point, because...
Alonso has passed Verstappen. Perez 1.1. Let's see if we can close up to Sainz to keep the toe, make defending easier.
Yep, try.
There from Verstappen, he's dropped back from Perez, and that allowed Fernando Alonso a chance to make a move on fresher tyres as well.
And this is where it becomes a huge win for Hamilton, if he can win it. This is why it's important, because as it stands, his lead in the championship will go up to 8 points. But if he overtakes for the lead, it'll go up to 15 points. If he can nab a fastest lap as well, that'll be 16 points over Verstappen. So he'd almost double his advantage if he overtakes Norris for the win.
And he's close, 1.5 seconds. Norris has picked up the pace, did his personal best on the last lap, but Hamilton did the fastest lap of the race, half a second quicker. But we know Hamilton followed Daniel Ricciardo for a long stint in that first part of the race. Until Ricciardo pitted, Hamilton could not get close enough to make...
Perez 0.9, he's on medium. The longer you can hold him up, the easier it gets.
Keep it clean. There's going to be so much pressure now. 14 laps to go. So much pressure when you're staring down the barrel of a first win. Any lock-up.
Expecting light drops in around 10 laps.
Well, there we go. Oh, with 4 laps to go, they're expecting some light drops of rain.
Ignore the light drops. I wouldn't even tell Norris about the light drops at this point. Let him focus on doing the laps. I'm surprised they bothered telling him that Perez had a slow stop. Sainz is third. It's negative. You're racing Hamilton for the win.
That message was to Leclerc, just for clarity, in the Ferrari.
Fastest lap of the race. Lando Norris.
The
3/10 quicker than Lewis Hamilton. He's replying.
He had DRS on that lap, did Lando Norris, when he lapped Nikita Mazepin in the Haas at his home race. And now the sound you can hear is Sergio Perez, who's...
Verstappen is struggling a lot on medium.
In third, I'll give you the full order. Norris leading, Hamilton second, Sainz in third, Ricciardo fourth, Perez is fifth, Alonso is sixth, Verstappen is seventh, Stroll is eighth, ninth is Russell, 10th is Ocon, Raikkonen, Leclerc, Vettel, Bottas, Gasly the top 15, Latifi, Tsunoda, Giovinazzi and Mazepin the 19 drivers. Jenny Gao.
Yeah, Daniel Ricciardo on the radio, the McLaren team telling him to try and close out the gap between him and Carlos Sainz and the Ferrari in front of him to try and get the toe. He is defending like crazy against Sergio Perez.
Leclerc gets ahead of Raikkonen for 11th place. Russell's doing a solid job, looking fairly comfortable at the moment in that 9th place, lapping similarly to Esteban Ocon, who's 2 seconds behind.
Sort of what you said at the start of the race, where can Russell aim for? Sort of 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, somewhere around there. Buried in 9th at the moment. Remember, he pitted very early, as did Stroll. But the hard tyres are still going okay, and they're rocking along with 13 laps to go, heading towards some points. Sainz, how miffed was Sainz when Ferrari told him the best they could hope for was a 5th place in this one when he led earlier on? He's still in 3rd and doing a good job. Ricciardo not able to make a move on him. I hope they told him now that he's racing for a podium.
So presumably, because we've got Ricciardo and Perez now fighting it out, and they're the battle of the slow stoppers, basically. So that's who Ferrari felt would be in front of Sainz, right? And that's why they had the P5.
Hadn't Ricciardo already pitted when they told him that?
Oh yeah, maybe, yeah. So I'm trying to work out why they thought he would be P5.
Were they expecting Verstappen to come through quicker than he is doing? Verstappen, that move that Alonso has made on him is catastrophic for Verstappen's race at the moment, because he's dropped 5 seconds back from his teammate.
Perez is close this time, coming into turn 2 as he tries to fight Ricciardo for 4th. Ricciardo covers the inside and gets good traction out of 2. Perez right in the slipstream, coming through the long left-hander of turn 3. Just has to blend off the throttle a little bit as they come into 4. Sends it, does he? Oof. Well, Ricciardo holds the place. I thought Perez was committing there, but wasn't quite the move for the Mexican. Norris leading, still 1.7 seconds, now 1.5 seconds, ahead of Lewis Hamilton. The gap is hardly plummeting down. On that last lap, Hamilton was just 0.2 of a second quicker, and he's getting into that real dirty air zone now.
And with every lap that Norris does, with Hamilton not getting closer, it just gives him more confidence, and you start to think you can definitely do it. When the Mercedes is charging back from 12 seconds to 6 seconds to 2 seconds, you're starting to think this is ominous, but you see him getting stuck there, and you think, okay, I can do this. I've held him off for 3 laps, I can hold him off for another 3, and the win is possible.
Lap 42 of 53, Jenny Gao.
Yeah, Verstappen started plumb last. He's made it up to 7th, was doing well, but now on the medium tyres, he's stuck.
From left, starting to go. Okay, understood.
It's going to be fascinating what happens in the next 10, 11 laps to see what happens with the different tyres that the teams have selected.
Not sure why. I guess Ricciardo's just being told because he's, don't worry about him coming through.
And McLaren a bit negative today on the radio. Telling Norris about the battle for 3rd, which he's 28 seconds clear of. Telling Ricciardo about Verstappen's tyres, which he's 8 seconds clear of, and Verstappen's got Alonso to deal with. Perez is really close to the back of him. That's the Red Bull that Ricciardo needs to watch out for. Of course, on the medium tyres as well, so maybe it was an alert to say Perez may also drop on the mediums, more likely. If Perez passes Ricciardo, you sense he can definitely go and attack Carlos Sainz.
Leclerc has now caught George Russell for 9th place then, so the Ferrari driver trying to get ahead of Russell might have the opportunity coming into turn 4. He's right in the toe, looks to the inside, and Leclerc makes the pass then. So that's down to 10th place for Russell, who's still 3 seconds.
Lewis, there's still a threat of rain towards the end.
Russell and the Williams, but we'll see whether that gang behind catches up to him. Norris leads, still only 1.5 seconds to Hamilton in second, 28 seconds back to Sainz in third, Ricciardo fourth, Perez fifth.
Lewis, there's still a threat of rain towards the end.
Hamilton being told there's still the threat of rain towards the end, but still the gap is 1.5 seconds. Norris is looking okay.
2/10.
I know, I don't want to commentators curse this, that's why I suddenly bailed out of saying how great it was looking.
2/10 quicker on the last lap was Hamilton than Norris. Is nudging down, and remember, if he gets within 1 second, that's when he was almost close enough to launch an attack on Daniel Ricciardo. That's when it gets really sweaty for the driver ahead, because the straight is long. If you can get within a second and have some DRS, deploy all the energy from your battery, and have a big...
That's 11 laps to go, dude. 11 laps. Keep going. You're doing a good job, mate.
Bobby, I'm hanging in, man. Trying to improve my balance.
Lap 43 of 53 in the Russian Grand Prix. Hamilton setting the fastest lap of the race on this lap. Norris is doing a personal best. 1.3 seconds between them still. Great little fight between Raikkonen and Ocon over 11th place coming down into turn 13. Raikkonen got ahead and then Ocon got back past again and held on to that 11th spot. They're both now 2.3 seconds back from Russell, so they are starting to close in a little on the Williams driver, who's in 10th place at the moment. The order is Norris, Hamilton, Sainz, Ricciardo, Perez, the top 5.
Threat of rain, 5 to 10 minutes, hitting 10.57.
Alonso, Verstappen, Stroll, Leclerc and Russell are the top 10. Ocon, Raikkonen, Vettel, Bottas, Gasly the top 15. Latifi, Tsunoda, Giovinazzi and Mazepin the 19 drivers. 10 laps to go.
Control the slip in sector 3, +1 on brake balance.
I can't hear you!
Torque 8, torque 8.
A bit closer, it gets harder to get closer again. You get more dirty air, then you start damaging your tyres a little bit more as well in that dirty air, and it becomes tricky. That's why we've seen basically very few overtakes today. But if there's one person that can do it at the end of this one, it's Lewis Hamilton, with the prospect of a Grand Prix win. With Max Verstappen, remember, down in 7th place and not able to make any progress on the back of Fernando Alonso. I think this is going to be a really disappointing outcome for Verstappen in his race, to only get to 7th, given where he has been earlier on. It was looking rosy at one point, but it's really petered out for him. For Hamilton, it petered out at the start, but now there's a chance of some real glory to win this one by taking it away from the man that's looking for his first ever Formula 1 win on the back of a pole position.
Yeah, temps are too low, torque 8, and push as hard as you can.
That's Sochi before it moves to St. Petersburg.
Very good.
Jenny Gao.
Carlos Sainz starting to struggle in the Ferrari, currently in 3rd place. He's saying his front left's beginning to go. He's got Ricciardo and Perez right behind him, trying to get a podium spot at the end of this race.
Yeah, Perez is only 6/10 back from Daniel Ricciardo. 10 laps to go. Well, it's going to be 9 laps to go now as Lando Norris comes through the final corner. George Russell reporting spots of rain at turn 10. Hamilton again 1.3 seconds back, and then he gets a bit of a tow as they come down the start-finish straight, and the gap comes down, but he's not close enough to have the DRS yet, Lewis Hamilton, as they come down in towards turn 1, and Perez has Ricciardo. Sergio Perez has got Daniel Ricciardo coming into turn 13, and the Red Bull driver is up into 4th place. Leclerc is getting ahead of Lance Stroll as well. So Leclerc in the Ferrari is having a nice run. He's up into 8th position. He's only sort of 6 seconds back from Verstappen now.
His tyres are almost 30 laps old. Free air, you've got him.
To make more progress than the Ferrari, but it's 7th for Verstappen, 8th for Leclerc, 9th for Stroll, 10th for Russell. Perez now 3.6 seconds back from Sainz. That's quite a long way to try and close down in 9 laps, but you can bet Perez will give it a go. Norris leads, Hamilton second, Sainz third, Perez fourth, Ricciardo fifth, Alonso, Verstappen, Leclerc, Stroll, Russell the top 10.
There's risk of rain increasing. It would arrive around turn 5 area first.
Starts getting closer.
Hamilton saying it's hard to get any closer to Lando Norris, also being told the rain's coming in off the sea, isn't it? The rain's coming in off the Black Sea towards turn 5 and the huge, futuristic-looking Bolshoi ice hockey dome. We're just getting a replay of how Perez got Ricciardo. Came from miles back coming into turn 13. Oh, and then late in the day sent it. Ricciardo saw him coming, and that was very, very nice. That.
How are conditions, Max?
Yeah, look, drizzling a little bit there.
Ricciardo was quite gentlemanly there. Didn't turn into Perez, didn't risk the collision, and in the end kind of opened the door and Perez went through. It was a tentative look, really, rather than an absolute lunge from Perez, but needed to be done, and he's got the place. He's also got a lot more pace than Sainz now.
Oh, and the brollies are going up in the grandstands. That's always the clear sign that there's a bit of drizzle coming. The brollies are going up, the ponchos are going on, and on lap 46 of 53, we could be in for the reverse of the end of qualifying yesterday.
How are conditions, Max?
Yeah, look, drizzling a little bit there.
Drizzling a little bit, says Verstappen.
Rain on the visor is not the thing you want to see when you're driving, because it rains, you get the water on your visor before the track gets slippery. So you keep pushing flat out through it, and then at some point you feel the grip level is going, and by then if you're on the absolute limit, you're probably going over it.
And Lando, umbrellas are going up.
We think rain coming turn 5. We think rain coming turn 5. Keep us posted if you see anything.
the rain.
Lap 46 of 53 then. It's still pretty only drizzly.
You know what? Maybe they can't see with the halo. It's harder to get the rain now onto the visors. So maybe that is actually useful information if Norris wasn't aware of it. He's feeling it's more slippery. Hamilton just nudging towards 1 second gap. Coming through the final sector. I don't think he's going to be quite close enough for DRS, but still just right on the edge of it.
Okay, be ready with inters, be ready with the soft.
Be ready with inters and be ready with a soft, says Carlos Sainz.
Basically, stay on your toes, team. Stay on your toes. The conditions are changing. It's got very gloomy overhead. Still, the lap times are coming in. It was a personal best for Perez on the last lap, trying to chase down Carlos Sainz for that podium. So the grip level not going just yet.
Okay, be ready with inters, be ready with the soft.
And there are brollies going up on the exit of turn 3 and coming up towards 4 and 5, and it is raining at 4 and 5 now as they come down towards the right-hander of turn 5, and Hamilton's now just half a second away from Norris in the battle for the lead. He's really close in and Norris slides! Norris slides off the circuit at turn 5, and that's Hamilton's opportunity. The Mercedes driver attacks to the outside. They're having to be so gentle in these wet conditions because that is the slippery part of the circuit. Coming now down towards the double left-hander. Hamilton will have the DRS, but he's actually slipped back quite a bit, coming through 8 and 9, and then out into turn 10 and down the back straight. Norris got away with that one. Hamilton does have the DRS as they head now towards turn 13. Lap 47 of 53. Norris leads. Hamilton is coming. Hamilton's coming at him. He's not close enough. Into turn 13 this time.
We think the rain might get worse before it gets better.
Go more across the circuit, and Norris is now super tentative. Hamilton's going to have DRS and a really good shot to try and take the lead into turn 2.
This has to be the opportunity for Hamilton. Oh, he's dropping back a little, coming into the final 2 corners. He's got DRS now as they come through the detection zone. So they come out now onto the start-finish straight, charging down towards turn 2.
He's dropped back a little bit too far, I think.
Is he going to get... He gets DRS. He's closing in. Perez is closing in on Sainz, meanwhile, for 3rd position. And Sergio Perez in the Red Bull gets 3rd position away from Carlos Sainz.
We think the rain might get worse before it gets better.
Vettel being told the rain will get worse before it gets better. Norris still holds the lead.
Alonso passed Ricciardo as well. Alonso up to 5th, and Norris now with over a second to Lewis Hamilton again. But they're coming back into the sketchy area. Turn 4, the right-hander, then turn 5. And this is where Norris dropped it. Just
box, 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 box. Box, box, box.
Makes it through this time. Hamilton with a huge slide.
Okay, let's box for Inters then, box for Inters.
Well, Stroll gambling. Lance Stroll in 10th place is gambling, and it's Norris off the road. He is. He gets back on though. Lando Norris off the road, back on again, still in the lead of the Grand Prix. But these conditions are so slippery, and they're coming up to some back markers that are going really slowly as well.
I think it's got to be Inters now. There's still 5 laps to go.
Oh, it's absolute tiptoeing.
It's pretty slippery, but it's not raining much.
Hamilton saying it's slippery, but it's not raining much. Bottas pits, Russell pits, Raikkonen pits, Mazepin pits. Lap 48 of 53.
This is like a real gamble now. The end of qualifying was one thing, now it's the end of the race as well.
Norris is wrestling the car as he tries to get past Pierre Gasly, the back marker, and he does do so. Norris is still holding the lead of this race.
Nearly 2 seconds.
Box for Inters.
Conditions. Is Hamilton coming in? Yes, he is.
Inters.
And Norris stays out, and Hamilton stays out as well. So has Hamilton overridden the team there? Lap 48 of 53. 5 laps to go now. Oh, what an end. What an end to this Russian Grand Prix. It started raining in the closing stages. Lando Norris is leading. He's slid off the track 2 or 3 times. Hamilton is chasing him down, trying to take victory. And it is a really intense final 5 laps on the BBC Sport website. The 2 Aston Martins have had a little bit of contact. Fernando Alonso's got ahead of Carlos Sainz. And Norris is still leading the way ahead of Lewis Hamilton as they come through the middle sector. Norris still holding on. Blue flags waving for Nikita Mazepin.
Leclerc's ahead of Sainz. Leclerc's up to 6th. Verstappen's up to 5th. Ricciardo's plummeted down to 8th.
Track very slippery from here to turn. Track very slippery from here to turn 10. Lots of cars going off.
Yeah, shut up!
Red Bull. Norris didn't need to be told that the track is slippery. Hamilton has another big power slide as they tiptoe their way around these. It's so agonizing to watch, but I think they've got to still stay out, haven't they?
They're 17 seconds away from fastest lap at the moment. Norris, he's about sort of 8-10 seconds away from what a good intermediate tyre time is. We wait and see. Everyone on the inter is on an outlap, so we don't have a great comparison.
So Norris in the middle sector was Norris and Hamilton 5 seconds slower in the middle sector alone than Russell and Bottas.
So you've probably got a pit with 4 laps to go, but is the rain going to vanish again?
Lando, what do you think about it, Inter? What do you think about it in Inter?
No!
Norris wants to stay. He's like, let's just stay out and win this Grand Prix. That's all I'm interested in doing. He stays out, and Hamilton pits. Lewis Hamilton pits from 2nd position.
It's stopped raining, man.
So box, pit confirmed. There's more coming.
Cracking job. He's actually pulled away from Hamilton in these conditions.
It's stopped raining, man.
So box, pit confirmed. There's more coming.
Hamilton says it's stopped raining. The team say there's more coming. And now we'll get a really good... Well, where's Hamilton going to come out compared to those that pitted on the Inters? I think he's still going to be comfortably ahead. Yes, he is. Your Verstappens and your Sainzes and your Ricciardos are still in the middle sector. Hamilton's going to come out in a comfortable 2nd place. So actually, they weren't really ever going to lose anything with that pit stop. Alonso up to 3rd now, ahead of Perez.
Hamilton has taken it. He's gone to an Inter.
Yes, I seen. We just got to commit to staying.
And this is a tough call from Lando Norris. He just wants the win. It's really rainy up at 5, 6 and 7. Norris leads, Hamilton 2nd, Alonso 3rd, Perez 4th.
Okay, Lando, Hamilton has taken it. He's gone to an Inter.
Yes, I seen. We just got to commit to staying.
Lance Stroll has had a spin at turn 6. Oh, and hit the wall. He's managed to get out of the wall. It was only a little nudge on the left-hand side. Oh, and there's been contact there with Pierre Gasly, who had contact with Stroll as well. So it's all kicking off out there. Norris is holding on, and the gap to Hamilton's down to 20 seconds.
He can't pit now. He'll be behind Hamilton. They just got to hope the weather holds off, or Hamilton is going to win this race. They cannot pit and emerge in the lead. I think Mercedes might have called this one spot on at the end.
But there's only 3 laps to go.
The final sector's better.
So if Norris tries to hang this out, he's going to be in trouble.
Oh, he is in trouble. He's out on the AstroTurf on the exit of the final corner. He's really struggling, Lando Norris. Huge slide. Antonio Giovinazzi is
Heavy rain here, mate, heavy rain.
Copy, mate, copy. Keep it on the black stuff.
Perez third, Leclerc is right behind Alonso, Sainz has just passed Vettel for 7th place. It's the rain's coming down at turn 2 as well. It was worth the gamble surely for McLaren, but now it's not paying off.
Heavy rain here, mate, heavy rain.
Heavy rain, says Verstappen. It's a safety car now would be the only thing to save Lando Norris. If someone were to bring out a safety car in these awful conditions, it will neutralise the race and it will probably finish under that safety car. Oh, it's so wet out there. And the cars on intermediates are coming up and passing Lando Norris. He's only 11 seconds ahead of Hamilton now. It's all slipping away from the British driver. 8 seconds now, the gap between Hamilton and Norris. It's absolutely chucking it down at the far end of the circuit. Norris can barely see where he's going, and here comes Hamilton now. Norris slides off. Norris off the road at turn 5 and spins. Norris spins. Hamilton.
It's full wet, boys. I got a box. I'm going to shut.
Yeah, we're going to come in.
I can't do this.
We're going to come in. We're going to box.
Is now third.
It's full wet, boys. I got a box. I'm going to shut.
Yeah, we're going to come in.
I can't do this.
We're going to come in. We're going to box.
So where is Norris? I don't know if he can make it back. It's so wet out there. It's really teeming down. Mercedes have called this one absolutely right with more rain coming. When Hamilton said it's drying, they said, yeah, but more rain is on its way, and that's just arrived. And there's no way. I mean, it's proper spray. Two laps to go. Lando Norris has just slithered out of the race lead. Lewis Hamilton has taken the lead of the Grand Prix away from Norris. Norris tried to stay out on the dry weather tyres, but he wasn't able to pull it off.
P2 is on here, mate.
And that's Max Verstappen being told you can get 2nd place here. They pitted early for the wet tyres, did Red Bull. Verstappen was
P2 is on here, mate.
2nd for Verstappen if he can catch Lando Norris in these final 2 laps. Where can Norris even make it back to the pits? The weather conditions are so bad. He's on the slicks and Verstappen is going to have him. Absolutely no doubt about this, unless there's a safety car and everyone gets neutralised. But it's going to be Hamilton and Verstappen at the front. They pitted for the Inters and it's absolutely been the right way to go. Hamilton leads the Grand Prix and looks set to retake the lead of the World Championship. Verstappen led it by 5 points coming into this race. Verstappen had to start at the back of the grid because of an engine penalty. Hamilton started 4th after a difficult qualifying, dropped back to 7th, but now looks like he's going to win the Grand Prix, and Verstappen's about to get Norris here. Lando Norris coming through the final few corners. He's crawling so slowly back to the pit lane that Max Verstappen has got ahead of him.
I cannot stop the car, guys.
Charles Leclerc was out on the dry tyres still. He said, I can't stop the car, and he's slithered off the road, but Verstappen is now 2nd.
I cannot stop the car, guys.
The way, Verstappen is 2nd, Sainz is 3rd, and it's disaster for Lando Norris, who took pole position superbly yesterday. Looked like before the rain came, he was holding off Hamilton for the win. It's just that 2nd flurry of rain that has just cost him. He's into the pits, he's on the Inters, but he's not in the top 5. Who else is going to come past him now? Well, suddenly Valtteri Bottas is back up into 5th position after he's had a fairly poor race in the other Mercedes. He was down in 14th place, but took a wet tyre gamble. Hamilton and Mercedes, though, have played it perfectly. Leclerc was having an absolutely storming drive, as was Fernando Alonso. Alonso pitted a little bit late for the Inters. He's down to 6th behind Valtteri Bottas, who must have taken the call early. And Leclerc's out of the points, and he was looking like he might have got a podium. Lando Norris almost spun coming into the pit lane, and he went out and then had to come back in. He might even get a penalty for that, Lando Norris, because he didn't enter the pit lane correctly. But Hamilton now starts the final lap of the Grand Prix. A race that looked like it was slipping away from him in the first half. Then it looked like he wouldn't be able to pass Lando Norris, but the rain has come. But he's going to be flabbergasted, isn't he, to see Verstappen finishing in 2nd. Hamilton will retake the lead of the championship, but only by 2 points. Well, this rain, in a way, has been bad news for Hamilton. Yeah, he's going to win the race, but he would have had a bigger advantage over Verstappen. He could have been 15 points clear if it had finished in the dry. Instead, he's only taking 7 points off him. Norris is going to take the fastest lap point for his hard work on the slick tyres. What, after this bonkers race, how
are we getting a finish of Hamilton first and Verstappen second?
For the first time since 1975, the top 3 drivers on the grid, Lando Norris, Carlos Sainz and George Russell, had not won a Formula 1 Grand Prix. It was the first time since 1975 none of the top 3 on the grid had won a race. And all of a sudden, here we are with Hamilton and Verstappen and another swing in the championship, this time in Hamilton's favour. Verstappen, though, started 20th and is running in second place. He's gained 18 positions during the course of this Grand Prix. It's a really, really strong drive from Verstappen, and as far as damage limitation goes, that's remarkable.
Yeah, he's out of... The result is remarkable. The race itself was sort of petering out for Verstappen, but second place was an unbelievable recovery. But the win for Lewis Hamilton will still give him the championship lead. I'm just so gutted for Lando Norris, who's still fighting for 7th place now, but should have been way more today.
Lewis Hamilton coming into the final couple of corners. He'd only won 1 race in 10 coming into Russia, but now he comes through the final corner. The checkered flag falls. Lewis Hamilton wins his 100th Formula 1 Grand Prix, and what a crucial one to win in the rain in Sochi as he moves back to the lead of the championship, just 2 points ahead of Max Verstappen, as their championship battle runs on and on. We'll have full reaction later on. We'll hear from all the top 3 and Lando Norris in the Checkered Flag podcast, which you can download later. But Lewis Hamilton wins the Russian Grand Prix. What an end. Well, it's not even ended. Hamilton's the only one that's finished.
Well, they were in a different class. Hamilton and Norris today were so far ahead, to the point that Lando, I don't know how long that lap was to get in, probably 3 minutes plus.
Yeah.
And he's still going to collect some points. He's trying to pass Kimi Räikkönen in the middle sector. I think he's made it through up into 7th. But they were so far ahead. It's just gutting for him that he's not even going to be on the podium.
Carlos Sainz is in 3rd place in the Ferrari. 4th is Daniel Ricciardo in the McLaren. He's only 2.2 seconds ahead of Bottas, but he's going to hold that position. There was so much going on. I've no idea who went to wets when, and like Alonso was suddenly 3rd, but then he was suddenly 7th.
Alonso.
Get in there, Lewis. That's it, mate. That's the 100. Yeah, well reacted at the end there, Lewis. Beautiful drive, mate.
Great effort, guys. Woo! That was hard work, man. It's taken us a long time to get that 100. But so grateful for all of you, for all the work back in the factory and here. Thanks so much for not giving up on me.
Well done, Lewis. Great job, man. Really well done.
Fantastic call on the rain tires. Thank you.
Yeah, strategists or weather forecasters win the day. I never thought I'd say that this year, but they've won the day for Mercedes. I don't think Hamilton was pitting if it was left up to his own devices in the same way that Norris didn't pit. When we heard the radio, Mercedes called him in and he said, no, it's dry, and they said there's more rain coming. Yeah. They were right. McLaren were wrong, or Norris was wrong. It felt...
Nicely done, Max. We'll take that. P2. Nice shot.
Well, we definitely take that one. Wow. Okay, that was the end, the good call. I think we took the right lap.
Yeah, well done, Max. You judged that. You judged that well. You got the right lap there.
We didn't lose too many points.